Good morning, good morning. It is September 14th. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning here in the wonderful Joliet, Illinois. And it seemed like a good day to start back up the Sumthins vlogs. So I'm gonna make some tea and then we'll get started with the day, okay? Okay, so on schedule for today is a lot of editing and shooting. I've got to shoot and edit 2 new videos for my channel, Sumthins Recording. If you haven't checked that out yet, I'll put a link below in the description. You can go check that out. It's just music production tutorials and such. And then after that, I've got to finish mixing and mastering a track for the Sumthins. It's a new cover we did. We collaborated with Reconsider Paradise on it. We had Ryan Gentile, their drummer, come over and track some drums on it. It's pretty cool. I'll give you a sneak peek later today when I start that. And then I've got to edit a track for a client. I've got to stretch and timeline a vocal part. So I'll show you that too. That might be pretty interesting. It's gonna make the track a little bit longer. And other than that, I've just got to finish mixing and mastering a track for us so we can finish shooting the music video, and maybe I'll give you a sneak peek at that as well. But that should round out the day. Let's get started. Okay, so the first video I'm gonna shoot here is on a question I got yesterday. Somebody messaged me and asked about creating melodies for guitar chords or over a set of chord changes. So I'm gonna open up a couple of our past sessions and show how we came up with the vocal melodies and the lead line melodies for a few of these songs, all right? So here are the chord changes for the guitar part in this first song. I'll play it through for you and then I'll start talking about how we constructed the vocal melody here, okay? So here's the chord changes for this song.
I'll cut my losses cause I don't stand a chance. She's found the one she'll marry, it's not.
So the easiest thing you can do when you're first starting out with this is just follow the root note of the chords as they go through, okay? So I'll let it pass through one time and then I'll give you an example of how you can just hum those root notes to get your bass line vocal melody, okay? Okay, so one video down. I'm going to move on to the second video now. I'm not going to show you the second video. You can see the second video when it gets released on YouTube in a couple days. But the second video is just covering my go-to vocal effects for rock vocals, okay? So it's pretty much just 3 things. It's a slapback delay set at 100 milliseconds. The second thing is a reverb with a really long pre-delay. It's like 150 millisecond pre-delay. And the reason for the pre-delay is it helps to not muddy up the vocal, okay? So you hear the vocal and then you hear the reverb after the vocal, okay? So if you don't have them going at the same time and it gets all muddy and cloudy sounding, okay? And the third thing is just a stereo quarter note delay, but it's usually pretty low in the mix. It's just something to give the vocal a little bit more width, okay?
Even a match I can fight against what makes her happy.
Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is some client work I have to do. Now I can't play this for you yet because it's not released and it's not finished. It's still currently in production, but I can still show it to you and explain what I have to do, okay? So this vocal was tracked a couple days ago. It's about a 3-minute song, but the whole vocal was tracked within like the first minute or so. So the vocal was sung too fast and it's not in time with the songs. So what I have to do is kind of stretch this vocal out and edit it and chop it up, line it up to the grid, and make sure it comes out at about at least a 2.5 minute mark, okay? Because there is like a 30-second intro or so. Now, the positive side is the vocalist wasn't happy with the pitch and the tone of their voice. They thought they were too high. They thought it was a little squeaky. So in stretching it out, it's gonna lower the pitch of the vocal. So we're kind of gonna kill 2 birds with 1 stone here, if you know what I mean, okay? So this is the session here for the client. This one here, this top yellow one, is the lead vocal that was cut by the client. The only edits on it are to get rid of breaths and get rid of background noise. It's just fade-ins and fade-outs. This one below, lead vox edit, is the one that I'm editing. I'm almost done here. You can see I'm just pulling down segments from the lead vocal above and moving them to where they should be, okay? So you can see at the beginning here, it's pretty close. He starts on time, but as we move along, you can see a little bit more off, a little bit more off, and a little bit more off here, right? So we're just stretching it so it matches the grid a little bit better. So here's the second line. You can see I had to pull it a little bit later to get this end part to match about this 11.4 mark. This next line we had to pull forward a little bit. We wanted it to start on the 1, and again we're ending on the 4 here. These aren't edited yet, so you can still see there's some some breaths and such that need to be edited. This line started way too early here. He starts way before the bar, so we had to drag that forward. And this kind of stuff is kind of harder to do because we kind of have to stretch the audio to try and match it to the grid if they're not singing on time. So you can see we pulled parts here, had to cut edits here, and we had to drag this last line way over so it would end kind of on the 4. You can still see it's not starting on the 13.4 mark. It's kind of in the middle of it. That's because if I were to drag it all the way over, it would sound a little bit choppy in between this part and this line here. So that's the challenge of doing something like this. If the singer's not singing on time, you could always just take the part, and I'll show you, for example. We'll copy this piece out here. If you have a vocal like this and you want to make it longer, in Studio One, if you hold down Command and Alt or Option, it'll give you this little clock sign when you come to the end here, and you can stretch a passage. But the downside to that is it does change the pitch quite a bit. And it can get a little phasey sounding, it can get a little flangey sounding, so I don't do that too much. You can do it a little bit. When you stretch things a little bit, it's not that noticeable. And in some pieces, I'm just cutting right in between the wave here and just pulling it down. On longer notes with longer vowels, you can get away with cutting in the middle of it and dragging one piece over. So that's the process for this here. I'm just going to finish out these edits here, and then we will move on to mixing and mastering that cover, okay?
Why does this always happen to me? I fall in love when she's complete.
Okay, one more thing left to do for today, and it's to finish mixing and mastering the cover that we did with Ryan from Reconsider Paradise, okay? I've just got a few tweaks left, and then I'll give you guys a sneak preview of it, all right? The few tweaks I have left are just against the reference track, so I will also explain to you guys how I use reference tracks, okay? Okay, so this is the session I've been working on. I just finished up a few tweaks on the mix, and I'm going to show you the EQ trick I use to reference professional masters, okay? So the mix bus and then these 4 reference tracks are all running to the main here, okay? And we're going to put an EQ on the main. And what we're going to do is we're going to go tiny frequency range by tiny frequency range, and we're going to compare each range to our mix and the professional master, okay? So we're going to start with 50 hertz and below, and I like to do all of my referencing in mono. So down here in Studio One, if you click that, when it's a little red circle, that means you're in mono, and then when you see the 2 blue circles, that means you're in stereo. So we're going to switch to mono here. This is just 50 hertz and below at a 12 dB per octave slope, and I'm going to show you what my track sounds like and then what the reference track sounds like, okay? So we're going to use this one here for the 50 hertz and below area because this is the reference I use for the low end of the kick and the low end of the bass, okay? So here's 50 hertz and below. Okay, so you can hear it's just the low end of the kick and the low end of the bass. So now we'll take a listen to the reference track, 50 hertz and below. Okay, so now we got the below 50 handled, and I would just take this and I would just go up and up, little frequency range by little frequency range. So next I would do 40 to 100, so I'll show you what that sounds like. Now bear in mind, I've already gone through and I've done this. I've tweaked the mix, I got it where I want it, so I'll show you what each frequency range sounds like in comparison to the professional master, okay? So make sure that's at 0 there, and then here's my mix. And I just keep going up. So next I do 100 to about 250. Next I do 200 to 500. So here's what that sounds like. you get that mid-range pop on the snare. Next I do 500 to about 1.5K. Next I do about 1K to 2.5K. So these are your high mids. Next I do 2K to 5K. So next I do 5K to 10K. And the final range I do is about 8K and up, okay? And then the final thing I do is I do 100 to 10K. It gives you a good idea what your mix is going to sound like through an old radio or through a mono Bluetooth speaker. So I do 100 to 10K and I make sure my mix sounds okay there. So that is the EQ trick. So I'll turn that off and I'll give you a preview of what this track sounds like. Okay? So here is the finished, mixed and mastered track, okay? This is the fourth verse going into the re-intro. So that's it. That's the song that we did with Ryan from Reconsider Paradise. He did a great job. He channeled Neil Peart pretty well. And we got to shoot the music video for this, and then it will be out pretty soon, okay? So that's your sneak preview of that one. So that is it. That is my day. I just finished up those tweaks on that song. That video should be out in a few weeks. We're pretty excited about that, and I know Ryan is as well. But that's it. I think I'll end the episode there. This has been the return of Sumthins Vlog. I'll see you next time.